Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's our Ukraine Russia China show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star. I would like to introduce my esteemed guest. Welcome to the show, Ben Banerjee from Switzerland, Swiss Impact. How are you today, Ben?
Thank you very much, Sasha, for invitation. I'm quite fine. Thank you. It's warm, it's nice weather, sunny.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. It's probably the nicest time of the year, also here in Canada. But unfortunately, it's not very nice weather in Ukraine now. And you see now, since it's well over 4 months since the beginning of the war, we can see now more or less how that war is shaping. And in fact, it seems to me that there are three kind of wars being fought at the same time. It's a real war with real weapons. It's another one, a propaganda or a fight for to influence the public, social media war, and finally, it's economic war. All three of them almost inseparable and very important, actually. So let's start with the first, the real war, what's happening right now. It's becoming obvious that Russians' goal is not necessarily to uh, get into strong negotiation position and arrange for a peace. No, in my opinion, it's taking war to its extreme and make it as long as ever possible. The reason is being that in a doctrine that Putin is subscribing, led by Russian nationalists, the West will eventually crumble, the dollar will disappear as a currency. And at that point, Russia, together with China and some other friends, if there are any, will take over the world economic power and will rule the world from that point on. Ben, what do you think? How valid is this theory, and why do you think that Putin is making a colossal mistake subscribing to this theory?
I think to start with, we have a couple of issues here. Number one, the conventional warfare that's going on. And you must have also heard that Luhansk is now gone. It's in the hand of Russians now. And
Yes.
as long as the West will not supply the weapons and as much weapons that Ukraine asks for, I mean, Ukraine is asking for nearly 4,800 heavy armory from the West. And with the 50 countries around the world approximately who are supporting Ukraine, not even a fraction of that weapon is reaching Ukraine. So as long as Ukraine doesn't have the weapon, it cannot give the victory or the power to push back Russians. And it is giving Putin quite a lot of propaganda to continue with the war because the fall of Luhansk is for Russia a very good propaganda for his internal market. As long as he does not lose or gets humiliated, he is going to be winning. So I think in the conventional warfare, there is, in my opinion, three options. One is that Russia will take the whole of Donbass, declares itself victorious, and stops the war. And this can happen, but this will take a long time because Donbass, as you know, is a very large area, and Ukrainian army still has 48% of Donetsk. So that's going to be one option if Russia somehow manages to defeat and destroy the Ukrainian army and takes the whole Donbass, and maybe then Putin stops. Other option is what Jens Stolberg, the head of NATO, also has been saying since a long time, that this is going to be a long war and nobody knows when and how it will end. And the option, you know, the US intelligence till now has been quite very accurate in predicting the moves and the decisions of Russia. So the Ukrainians are getting weapons. They, for example, have now 4 HIMARS and howitzers, but that's nothing compared to what Russians are putting against them. So this is going to be very long, and it's not going to be effective warfare. And now West is also considering giving anti-missile weapons to Ukraine, which may give Ukraine, the cities, some kind of protection against the Russian missile. And the third, the last one, is that either Russia wins the war, that means Russia goes for the as Putin had originally planned. Only his ambition, as you know, is bigger than his capacity. So he can only take Ukraine if he manages to destroy, or by Ukraine, I mean Kiev, if he manages to destroy the whole Ukraine army, which of course he doesn't have the option, or Ukraine wins it and pushes Russia out of the whole Ukraine. But you remember this was like more than a month ago when Ukraine managed to push Russians out of Kiev. Everybody was rejoicing, and I was bit pessimistic. I said it's too early to say, and this is also what happened, that Russia has far more weapon and is a far bigger army for Ukrainians to defeat them and push them out. So that may be the third option, but I don't know which option it will lead for.
Ben, look, you mentioned that in a first scenario that you indicated that Putin will take over all Donbas territory, including not only Lugansk, but also Donetsk Oblast,
Yeah,
which he doesn't control at the moment, right?
yeah,
And then he would stop. What makes you
yeah.
think that he would stop
Because
taking
this is
over
what
all Donbas?
because number one, I don't think he has the capacity to take over whole Donbass because it's a very long way to go still. And number two, because this is what he has been telling his people since the beginning, that we are freeing or liberating Donetsk and Luhansk region. So he has a kind of face-saving scenario, considering the devastation that the Russian military has faced and the destruction they have faced. I think this is quite a face-saving scenario, which he may opt for.
I think, Ben, this situation when all these sanctions are absolutely devastating for Russia, not in a short period of time, not in a month or 2 months. We are talking about longer perspective since the war is going to be long. So let's look at a year, 2 years, maybe even 5 years' time. If all the sanctions will remain in place, regardless of how situation in Ukraine will develop, that is absolutely devastating scenario for Russia. It's a no-win situation. It's a just devastating situation. So now let's look at the Ukrainian situation. I think we've learned already that whatever Putin says has very little to do with reality. Okay, he may say one thing, do another thing, think about the third thing, and all together.
Yeah,
So nobody, in fact, knows what were the real plans for Putin in Ukraine and what he believes uh, the result, desirable result, is equal to winning the war, or it's kind of a point where he can stop the war and say that our aim has been achieved, we've got it, we won the war, it's enough. Is it just Donbass territory? You see, Putin, with all the atrocities committed in Ukraine, he has no way back. He cannot now scale back his plans and say, okay, we achieved something or so on, because he's not going to be forgiven, not by world society, not by Ukrainians, and not even many Russian people for what he's done. So now he has no need to think about using the brakes, stop the aggression. No, he is now committed.
yeah,
It's either he will go full speed ahead, take all over Ukraine, go take over Moldova, if he can.
yeah,
We're not sure about that. But if let's see if West is not supplying Ukraine with the heavy weapons, so Ukraine cannot launch counterattack. The only thing is it can continue to defend itself, but it's
hmm,
doomed. They will lose ultimately simply because Russian will repeat. It will take them 10 years. They will go 100 meters a day,
yeah,
will bring their heavy artillery, move another 100 meters. They will use all the artillery, so all Russian factories will do nothing but produce more and more weapons. And they will just, it takes 10 years, maybe longer than 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be overly optimistic. And therefore, there is no defense for Ukraine unless they will get heavy weapons from the West. There is no way to resist in the long run. They can do
Yeah.
some counterattacks, they can do some damage, they can start using
Guerrilla
missiles.
warfare. Yeah.
Yeah, they can start using missiles against some Russian cities which are not too far away.
Yeah.
But it's really doing not much, and Russian army will slowly and surely, and they will move from all sides. They will move to the east, to the south, and then eventually it will all they will encircle Kiev from all sides, and they can even leave Kiev and just continue westward,
Yeah.
provided that Ukraine will not get heavy weapons from the West. So now this
Yeah.
is very simple exercise. Is Ukraine going to get as many weapons and as fast as possible from the West, or it will not get that? That's
I,
becoming a very
I,
simple issue.
I think there are a couple of issues here. Number one is that West also does not have infinite supply of weapons. Many of these weapons that the West is supplying is not even being produced anymore. They are outdated.
Yes.
West is also now running very, very low on its ammunitions and weapons and everything. That's one. Secondly, the appetite of arming Ukrainians to go on an aggressive or on an assertive war is not in the Western leaders. And thirdly, West being a democracy, the opinion of the public counts. And then the second and the third version, which you were saying, speaking about, is the cyber warfare or economic warfare, which Russia is also doing. This will also start eating away the motivation of the Western leaders. So so I don't think the Western leaders have infinite capacity. Maybe one or two country like US and UK, because of ideology and because of the moral ground, will stay, but these will also weaken because, as you know, President Biden, now slowly the midterm election is coming. He will be blocked at every direction, and also Prime Minister Boris Johnson is also now not really in his full power in UK. So there's a lot of internal things going on. So as long, in my opinion, West does not go on an offense, West will lose.
Yes. On the other hand, I'm aware that there are several U.S. Weapon production factories are working 3 shifts a day, 24 hours a day, just to fulfill Ukrainian needs. So behind the scenes, with all the rhetorics about the economic crisis and perhaps recession and so on, there are certain things which are not making very loud impact, but they are happening.
Yeah,
So in this case, and to tell the truth, Ukrainians, unless they would be sure that Western weapons are coming, I think they would choose probably a different strategy of
yeah,
handling the war. And I think that they did the right thing recently, that they started to leave the area of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk simply because they want to save as many lives as
yeah.
possible.
But that's
So
a
they're
strategy.
avoiding.
Yeah, it's I had said it from the beginning, but this is something a very, very difficult choice that President Zelensky has to make, is to save lives at certain moment, and Russia doesn't bother. It will keep on hammering them and hammering them and hammering them till President Zelensky decides maybe it's better to leave that place and save as many lives as possible.
Absolutely. You know what he said just in the last couple of days in one of his speeches? He said that we can always rebuild the walls, we can always retake the territory, but we will
Yeah,
never be able to surrect the
the lives
people
lost.
who will be killed.
Yeah,
As life loss are irreplaceable. So that's in mind. So Ukraine has to take, and it's taken now, approach to save as many lives as possible, to give away the territory when there is no possibility to defend it without heavy
yeah,
loss of lives. And even after heavy loss of lives, it's still not enough to retain this or to save this territory in Ukrainian stronghold
Exactly.
because Russian will take it anyway. So why to lose so many precious lives?
Yeah.
It doesn't
And
make any
I
sense.
think Putin is exactly counting on it.
Yes, yes, that's puts him now in a place when there is no return with all these heavy sanctions against him. He's trying to inflict as much damage as possible to the West, no doubts
Mhm.
about that. And West actually is cooperating with Putin by
Yeah.
oil embargo and the gas shortages. The gas is getting to astronomical levels in Europe lately, and so on. So the Putin strategy, as much as it's devious one, but it's working. But it's all in the short run, not
Yeah.
in the long run. In the long run, it's not going
Exactly.
to work. And I
And
think
also
Putin
on
feels,
Yeah,
sorry,
also in the short term, if you look at every day you read in the news that President Biden put aside so many 100 million for aid to Ukraine, and Europe has put aside so many 100 million as aid to Ukraine. But if you look at the total aid that has gone to Ukraine since the war started, it is just a couple of billion. Compare that to the money that the West has paid since the war started, since 24th February till today, for the oil. It is like 20 to 30 times more. So so we are not, I mean, I have severe questions about this sanction, because on one side you are not you are giving them more cash in dollars than what you are giving to Ukraine. On second side, the damage they are inflicting on Ukraine. I was reading the latest report. Ukraine mentioned it's $750 billion damage they have suffered, which
yes.
who is going to pay that? And then the third issue is that the the weapons or the arms that's being supplied is also nothing compared to what Russia has. So Ukraine is still getting far less to fight the Russians back. So I'm not very sure if the sanctions are working at all. And we are talking about technology, that Russians will fall behind in the technology, which is also not true, because don't forget our dear friends, the Chinese. They will supply Russia, and they are supplying Russia with everything.
Yeah, that's true. Russians are looking, actually, not only China, they're looking elsewhere in the world, including Thailand, including, of course, uh, Korea, South Korea, which is more questionable because the Koreans are more mindful about U.S. sanctions if they will supply Russia. But they're looking everywhere,
Yeah.
all places. They're trying to bring forces to fight from places like Syria, for example, and many other places. They definitely have a shortage of actual soldiers in the field,
Yeah.
and people are trying to avoid this service. There is a story about a young hockey player who was about to sign contract with NHL in Canada and the United States Hockey League, and instead he's now in Siberia somewhere. He's now conscript in the army. So he's giving training, and then he will be probably thrown in Ukraine to fight for Russia.
Hmm.
So the life is not easy in Russia.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. So the latest comments I've heard is that provided that the weapons from the West will materialize in the quantities and qualities required by Ukraine, there will be a counter attack mounted. We're looking at August, beginning of September, most likely in August, actually. So Putin probably well aware of it. So he's trying to get as much land as possible before this counterattack, and he will. I was always suspecting that he would be aggressive to try to find the this transfers of these heavy weapons from the Europe, where they're arriving mostly in Poland, but some other countries as well, and
Yeah.
then they're transported to Ukraine. So he would attack this
The transport.
transport routes. So
Hmm.
far, it hasn't happened, but we don't know what's happened in the future. So right now, of course, this is a very complicated exercise to um, get these weapons from United States or from UK or from any other place to transfer them to
Mhm.
Europe, from Europe to Ukraine, from
Yeah,
Ukraine to the front lines, to have a training, to have all this has to be coordinated, because you don't
yeah,
want to train too many people if there are no so many weapons are coming. On the other hand, you don't
exactly.
want to have a
Yeah,
shortage of people, so you have to train as many people as possible. So
exactly.
this is
But
not easy exercise.
exactly. No, no. I mean, we have to keep in mind that in a case of war, the first victim is the truth. So yes, indeed, Russia can hit the supply line, and the supply line is, you can't hide it. It is just a couple of countries via which the supply can come to Ukraine.
Yes,
It's definitely not Hungary, because Hungary will not allow it. So it is Poland and maybe one or two more countries.
maybe
So Russia
Romania.
can hit it. Yeah, exactly. Russia can hit it. And the Ukrainians, they never talk about their losses. If you read the Russian media, which I sometimes do, they do claim that they have hit couple of not only petroleum depots but also weapon depots. So
Yes.
assuming that there is some kind of little bit of truth in it, which you never know in the war, you never know which is the full. So they have managed to hit some of these weapon depots.
Yeah, yeah, that's undeniable. That actually, I'm watching a couple of programs from Russia, Ukraine, especially from Ukraine. They always say, please take information from both sides with a great deal of skepticism.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Probably a very right approach.
Hmm. Exactly. I mean, if you also look at the attacks which now took place in the Russian border cities, which Russia claims the Ukrainians hit it, but the Ukrainians claim they did not. Question
Yes.
is, where is the truth? And I don't know what's the truth. Because I do believe, which I think I spoke also the last time and also the time before that, as long as Ukraine is not hitting the places from where the missiles are being fired or Ukraine is being bombed at, this war is going to go on for indefinite period. The only way to stop it is to hit the places from where the missiles are coming. And this is not only coming from Russia, it's coming from from Crimea. It is coming from Donetsk and Luhansk, where the Russians have taken over. And it is also coming from Belarus, from where the Russians are hitting Ukraine. So Ukraine has to hit these places. Whether it can or whether it will, that's a different question. And whether it is doing that, that's also a different question, because Ukraine will not say if they are indeed doing it.
I think about this bombing in Belgorod, I think Russians are confused whether to admit that indeed Ukrainians bombed this the Russian city. On the other hand, they cannot deny it completely.
Yeah,
So there's kind of neither here nor there. And Ukrainians are not confirming that they did it, and they're not denying it either. So,
yeah.
so this is very interesting situation that both
But
sides.
Russians are officially blaming Ukraine for it. So if
Mhm.
you also read the local news, there was also a BBC reporter who went over to Russian side.
Mhm.
They really believe that Ukraine is hitting them.
Well, so the Ukrainians now got a little bit attention from Russians that it's not just so much one-sided affair, that both sides may suffer. But again, it's all depends. And I think in next 2 months we will know which way really the war is turning around. Because if there are no weapons of substantial quantity and quality will be coming, Ukraine will be in very, very difficult
Yeah,
situation. And apparently, Ukraine had a very small opportunity for a peace talks after first 2 weeks of from the beginning of the war, when they got people Russia away from Kiev, and it would last it, in my opinion, only 2 weeks,
Yeah,
before Russians would start launch this initiative in the Donbass region. So I think the Ukraine had 2 weeks opening of doing something about it. Um,
I,
but
I, I would not say it was an opening because at that moment Ukraine was desperate because there was an invasion of Kiev going on. Ukraine was desperate.
no, I'm
So
talking
of
about
course,
after they already kicked Russians out of Kiev.
okay, okay.
I'm talking about
I,
2 weeks after the beginning of the
yeah,
war, and I'm talking about 2 weeks at that point. So we are talking about like mid-March, 2 weeks.
exactly. But
Yeah.
but if I am an Ukrainian or if I'm President Zelensky, I will not take that peace offer because at that time they were in a kind of quite a good mood that they have managed to push the
Yes,
Russians back and they will not give in so easily. So they thought they can also push the Russians back from the rest of Ukraine.
that's true. That's true.
So of course he will not accept the peace treaty. And secondly, if I am a Ukrainian, at no cost will I accept any peace treaty with Russia at this moment. As long as Russians are in my country, taking my cities, bombing my villages and my cities, killing my people, why would I at all go for a peace treaty? But this I find again a greatness of President Zelensky that he still stays open for the option.
Yeah. It's really requires a lot of courage,
Yeah,
and don't forget he's still very popular with Ukrainians. He's unquestionable leader of Ukraine, and maybe more than Ukraine at this time. And I really hope that in next few weeks we will have a lot of good news about the weapons coming from West, from United States primarily to Ukraine, and hopefully this is beyond political consideration in the United States with Biden and his coming November midterm election. I think the machinery of Lend-Lease, complete production devoted to Ukraine with three
yeah.
shifts, 24 hours a day working, it's already beyond the political consideration. It's already it works. So
I
the results
sincerely
should
hope
be
so.
seen.
I sincerely hope so, Shasha, what you were saying true, but US seems to be now going through quite a crisis of itself. I mean, look at their Supreme Court decisions. So it is the politics has really penetrated every institution in US. So what I would also say that so we are talking about conventional warfare, but also don't forget we have cyber warfare and we have also the economic warfare which is going on. So Russia initially did the hybrid warfare with Crimea. With at this moment, Russia is doing not a hybrid warfare but a full-fledged conventional warfare.
Yes.
But don't forget the role of cyber warfare. There has been now attacks on Lithuania. There has been attacks on United Kingdom, cyber attacks. There's quite a lot of attacks going on which Russia is inflicting now. Problem is because I have been in the board of a couple of think tanks. US, and not only US, the NATO has a massive arsenal of cyber weapons also. US is not a victim. If it comes under serious cyber attack, US has enough capacity to counterattack. Question is, will it? Will it use the cyber weapons? Because Russia is now clearly attacking Western countries in cyber warfare. So maybe it's a time that the Western countries can also attack back. Till now, they have not, to my knowledge.
Um, well, look, Western leaders, in my opinion, they just don't know how to talk to Putin. You see,
Yeah,
Putin is coming from small time, basically a criminal childhood where he was fighting all the way, and they were talking like people talk in Russian prisons. So, if the moment Putin would say that he will unleash nuclear arms against London, for example, that London is
yeah,
now his target number one. So, if the West immediately respond that not only for each missiles that you will unleash on London, we will unleash 10 missiles on St. Petersburg and 15 missiles on Moscow, and all
Which
15
will
missiles
reach.
will be aimed at the bunker, and they will kill you instantly. It will be even 1 second. So
Yeah,
you are the target number one. Forget about London and so on. You are Mr. Putin. You are the target. Run for your life.
yeah,
This is the way he knows how the
yeah.
people on the streets are talking. And that's what engraved in his psyche.
Exactly. No, but about this, because in this, if you look at the cyber warfare, so West till now has not been directly involved in the war because the war is going on in Ukraine, and Ukraine is not a NATO member, so West stays out because West has not been attacked. But now West is being attacked in the case of cyber warfare. It's a direct attack on UK, it's a direct attack on Lithuania. So, in my opinion, it gives now the West full right, legal right to counterattack and not keep on saying that, oh, it's Ukraine, it's outside of NATO, we don't, it's not our war.
Also, another thing is, for example, before start to launch this counterattack in cyber warfare, you just make him an ultimatum. Mr. Putin, here we go, 24 hours. You have to do this, and that. Okay, 23 hours and 59 minutes. Go, do it, and report to us. Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye bye. You
Then,
see,
and
that's their language. That's what they understand. They
and
don't
it can be
understand any
done.
other language.
Because I do know a little bit about the capacity of the Western cyber warfare. They can do this. They can penetrate even Putin's house and everything from cyber warfare. So you can make him taste his own medicine.
Absolutely. And
Question is, nobody's going to do it.
you see, Putin talks to Western leaders with such a contempt. Did you see this stenogram of his talk with Macron? When Macron tells him something about it, we have to decide this. Putin says, "Oh, my friend, sorry, I have to play hockey tonight.
Yeah,
Bye bye."
and still Macron keeps on trying. I, I mean,
That's
I don't know whether to laugh at it or to treat it with respect. That at least he's still there's one voice of sanity trying to speak to Putin.
Do you think is it a useful activity to talk to Putin?
I think I have studied and I educate also negotiation. I think communication should doesn't matter how bad the situation is. The communication should always stay open. During the Cold War time, there was very clear communication between Kremlin and Washington, between the generals, between the guards, between the soldiers. There were different levels of communication. Communication was always open. So I think cutting off all communication is not really despite of how detrimental the other person is or how offensive the other person is. Without communication, you're not going to get out of it,
Hmm.
in my
Okay.
opinion.
I agree with you. Although you must remember that during the 2021, Biden had a personal meeting face to face with Putin and two very long video conferences with Putin. And what are results of that? Or you may say that it could have been much worse if it wouldn't be these three meetings, right?
I know, and each of them gave the other enough content to ridicule about. So
Hmm.
Putin gave
Yes.
enough content to Biden to ridicule, and Biden gave enough content to Putin to ridicule about. I mean, he also made fun of Biden and everything.
Hmm.
So, but I still believe that communication should stay open, and maybe not between the country leaders, but on track 2, track 3, track 4 level, communication should stay.
That's what's happening in the Cold War.
Exactly, and that should be there because that otherwise makes the situation worse. Because tomorrow, if Putin suddenly gets drunk and he wants to fire all the nuclear missiles, there will be people around on track 2 and 3 who will not let it happen.
If he will try to use red buttons, there will be two or three people inside his bunker who are going to deal with him
Yeah,
accordingly. I'm
I,
pretty
I
sure.
I sincerely hope that. But don't underestimate his guards. He has quite a loyal guards around him. So to reach him is not that easy.
Yeah, agree.
and there has been till now no sign of any kind of how do you call it, mutiny or something within his closest circle.
Mhm. Okay, Ben, I wish we would spend more time on economic part of this war. And I have an idea. Tomorrow we have an economic show on at 1 o'clock. So it's 7 your time, 7 p.m. your time. Uh, I would be gladly invite you to participate, and we could touch the economic side of this war. If
Tomorrow
your
at
time,
7 my
yeah,
time.
7 your time. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
1 o'clock our time. I will
I
send you
should.
a link, and I will
Okay.
continue from that point on. Just economic part of it, okay? If
Okay.
you can.
Yeah.
Okay. In meantime, I would like to thank you, Ben, very much. Looking forward to see you tomorrow as well, and all our listeners. All the best for you, and we'll see you next program for Ukraine, China, Russian show. Thank you very much. Bye bye, everybody.